boys and girls, welcome back for another lesson, and this is going to be our last lesson before Easter time, and then we're going to have a break for a couple of weeks as you have your Easter holidays before we get back again. And what we're going to do this week is we're going to pause where we were in our Bible stories looking at Jesus's ministry on earth. We're going to pause that for a week or two, and we're going to jump forward because, as you all know, it's coming up to Easter time, and you'll all be having your Easter holidays very soon. And so we thought it was really important that we look at the Easter story so that we know what Easter's all about. So we're going to pause where we were. Jean told us last week all about Jesus speaking with Nicodemus, and Nicodemus asking what he must do to inherit eternal life. And Jesus told him he must be born again, if you remember that. We're going to pause that there. We're going to jump forward a little bit in the Bible, and we're going to look at the Easter story. But before we do that, I asked your mums and dads to film you to ask a question, and the question was, what are you guys most looking forward to over the Easter holidays or Easter time? So you are going to tell us what you're looking forward to, and Arthur is going to lead the way, and he's going to start us off. So over to you, Arthur.
Arthur, what are you looking forward to at Easter time?
An Easter bunny come and have a good Easter and have some Easter egg.
Anything else?
No.
Hello, Mary at church. My favorite thing when people hide ads, I can run and find them. That's my favorite part at the Easter.
Easter egg hunts.
Easter egg hunt.
And is your favourite bit eating them as well?
Yeah.
Elliot, what are you looking forward to at Easter time?
I love you too, Mummy.
I love you too, Petal. But what are you looking forward to at Easter time?
It's Easter eggs.
Eating Easter eggs. And Sadie? What are you looking forward to at Easter time?
At Easter time, I'm looking forward to having nuts and chocolate eggs and looking for Easter eggs.
Easter egg hunts.
Yeah, Easter egg hunts.
Cool. Okay.
Looking forward to in your Easter holidays?
I like Easter because the Easter bunny comes and it's so cool because the Easter bunny have a Eastery hat and a Eastery bag where you can put all of the eggs in and all of the chocolate eggs and he loves giant eggs. They are the right shape, but a too giant one won't fit in his basket. It'll just take all of the room.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, Jeremy. That's good. What are you looking forward to during your Easter holidays?
Doing an Easter egg hunt in the park and finding Easter eggs and eating them all up.
Oh, is that it? That's good.
And also play Easter egg. We're gonna throw Easter eggs down a hill, and then whoever goes the furthest is the winner.
Okay, thank you, Daniela. That's good. Bye.
Miriam, what are you most looking forward to about Easter time? What are you most looking forward to? What happens at Easter time?
We collect eggs.
You collect eggs. Where are you going to collect them?
Around the garden where you hide them.
Oh, an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to?
And finding the eggs in Easter.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you guys are all going to have a fun Easter time eating a lot of chocolate. So enjoy every bite of it. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to take some time and we are going to look in the Bible. where we've been looking so far at the story of Jesus' life. We've looked at his birth, we've looked at his life, and we're going to go back to that in a few weeks' time. But as I said, we're going to fast forward a little bit now to how Jesus died and why he died as well, because that is the real meaning of Easter and what we celebrate at Easter time. So we're going to fast forward a little bit. Now, if you remember in the stories we've already looked at about Jesus, usually somewhere in the story we find people who aren't happy with Jesus. They're not happy with his teaching and not happy with what he's doing. And usually it's the religious leaders. It's the people who should have known better, the people who had the Old Testament that told them to wait for a promised rescuer that God was going to send. And God did send his promised rescuer. He sent Jesus, but the religious leaders didn't believe that this was the person who God really had sent, and they didn't believe him, and they were always trying to trip him up and to get into arguments with him. And when we come to the Easter story, they've finally got their way, and they have managed to get Jesus arrested. Now, it's very important to know, boys and girls, Jesus did absolutely nothing wrong. Jesus had no sin in him. He had done nothing wrong. But these religious leaders were determined to have him arrested, and they wanted to kill him. And so they got him arrested, and they just refused to believe that Jesus was God's son. And eventually, they then handed Jesus over, after he had been arrested, they handed Jesus over to the person who was in charge of that particular area. And this man was a man called Pilate. And Pilate said to Jesus, he said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews? Are you this promised king that God had said he was going to send all those years and years and years ago?" And Jesus said, "Yes, that's right, I am," because Jesus is God's promised king. And Pilate actually, he looked at the crowd and he said, "Well, what do you want me to do with him?" Because Pilate didn't really believe Jesus had done anything wrong. And the crowd all cried, "Crucify him, crucify him," which is a really, really harsh and bad thing to say, because to crucify someone, it means to kill them, and to kill them in a really bad way. Now, for those of you who had the worksheets, to crucify someone, it means to put them on a cross like this, and that they're hung up on a cross and they're left to die there. And it's quite painful. It takes a long time, and usually it would take a long time for someone to die on a cross. So it's a very, very harsh and a sad way to die, and it's usually left for the people who are the worst people, who have done the worst things, and yet they wanted Jesus to be crucified. And so Pilate said, "Okay, you can crucify him," and he said, "You do whatever you want." And so the soldiers were told, now these would have been Roman soldiers, they took Jesus and they put a robe on him. We're told they put a crown of thorns on his head, and we're told that they mocked him, they were nasty to him, and that they led him away and put him up on the cross to be killed. And we're actually told that they nailed his hands and his feet to the cross. This perfect man who had done nothing wrong, God's son. And we're told they put a sign above his head that said, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." And they put that sign there to mock him, because they didn't really think he was the King of the Jews. But they didn't realise that that sign was true, that he is the King of the Jews, the King who God had promised. And so he was crucified, and we're told he was crucified next to criminals. So you can see there was other people who were being crucified along with him as well. And we're told that as he died, darkness came on the land everywhere. It got really, really dark. And we're told that just before Jesus died, he cried out and he said, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Because it was hard. What he was going through was the worst thing anyone could go through. And then we're told he died. And then just at that moment, as soon as Jesus died, we are told that in the temple, the curtain, there was a huge big curtain in the temple, it ripped. Nobody ripped it. No human ripped it. It was ripped from top to bottom. And then we're told there was an earthquake and the whole ground would have been shaking. As soon as Jesus died, these things happened. And one of the men who was guarding Jesus' body, he said, this man really was God's son, because he knew that something incredible was happening. And this man would have seen lots and lots of people die before, but he knew there was something very special about this, and he said that exactly the right thing. He knew it was because it was God's son. So Jesus died. And then we're told that Jesus was taken away and he was buried in a tomb. Now I'm just getting a sheet here. Some of the younger ones were doing this one. So the tomb would have looked something like this. So sort of like almost like a big cave. And they put a huge big stone. You can see how big that stone is. They've got pictures of men there beside it. So it's a big stone. And what they did was they took Jesus' body, put it in the tomb and rolled this stone in front of the tomb. And they did that because they were afraid someone might come along and steal Jesus' body. And 3 days after he died, 2 of Jesus' friends, who both happened to be called Mary, came along and they wanted to see Jesus' body. And so they came along, and you can see again in this little worksheet, this is a picture of the 2 Marys, what they might have looked like, coming up to the tomb. And they were not expecting to see an angel when they got there, because when they got to the tomb, there was an earthquake and they saw an angel sitting on the big stone, and the stone had been rolled away. And the Bible tells us at this point that the guards fainted. It was too much for them to take in, and they actually fainted. And so the angel spoke to the women and he said, don't be afraid, because they must have been terrified, because you do not see an angel every day. He says, I know you're looking for Jesus, but he's not here. He has risen like he said he would, because all along when Jesus was on earth, he always said, I have to die, but I will rise again. And the women ran off and left the tomb quickly and went to find the disciples to tell them this great news that Jesus was alive again. And just then, as they were running to meet the disciples, Jesus greeted them. They met Jesus on the way, and the women immediately started to worship Jesus, because they were so happy that after this very, very sad thing, watching him die, he was alive again. And again, Jesus says to them, he says, don't be afraid. He says, tell my followers, my disciples, to go to Galilee, and they will see me there. And Jesus did appear to Peter and to the other disciples. He ate with them, he talked to them, he spent time with them, and lots of other people saw Jesus after he had risen again. Many people saw that he was alive. And then he went back up to heaven again to be with his Father. So boys and girls, that is the Easter story. And some ways you can look at it, and the story of Jesus' death, it's very hard to listen to. There's some sad things in it. And what looks like the worst day in the whole world actually is the best day in the whole world. And that is because Jesus was doing what his Father had planned. God had always planned to send his Son to die for sinners. The price of sin, the penalty of sin, had to be paid, and it had to come through death, and it had to be Jesus, because he is perfect. It had to be someone perfect to die in our place, and he did that. And all along we've been learning how Jesus was obeying his Father's plan, and that plan all along was to rescue sinners. So the Easter story, the true Easter story, boys and girls, and the reason why Christians all over the world celebrate Easter is because this was God's plan all along, the plan that we read about from the very beginning of the Bible. Easter was that plan. Jesus dying on the cross and rising again, showing that he is God, because normally when people die, they do not rise again, but Jesus did because he is God's Son. And so that's what we celebrate. And boys and girls, what I want you to do this Easter time is to remember the real meaning of Easter. And the real meaning is that Jesus died for you. He died for me. He died for all of us who are sinners. And just as last week we were learning about Nicodemus and how Jesus said to him, you must be born again. You must have new life. And the only way to have that new life and to be Jesus' friend is to trust in Jesus, and what he has done for us on the cross and by rising again. So when you look at all the little rabbits and all the little lambs and all the eggs at Easter time too, all those things speak of new life. So every time you see any of those things, I want you to think, new life. And what new life really means at Easter time is life with Jesus forever if we trust in him. So thank you so much for listening, boys and girls. Hopefully you've picked up your worksheets, so if you want to fill those in, colour them in, you go for it, and we can see them maybe at the Zoom. We're hoping to Zoom this Friday afternoon, so if you can join us, that will be the last one before we stop for a couple of weeks over Easter time. Okay, so hopefully see you then. Thanks now, bye bye.